Is homosexuality a sin in your eyes?
Yes, I've always believed, Pierce, the Scripture shows that it's a sin. But, you know, I'm not one of those that are out there to bash homosexuals and tell them that they're terrible people and all that.
So, I suppose the obvious question is, we did that back in January. Has your position changed at all after that? Because it raised a lot of headlines, a lot of controversy. Since then, more states have endorsed same-sex marriage. It's becoming much less of a prohibitive kind of issue than it used to be. What's your view now?
You know, Piers, it really never changes because mine's based out of the Scripture. That's what I believe, that the Scripture says, that homosexuality is a sin. So, you know, I believed it before and I still believe it now. Again, I would just reiterate what I said. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't dislike anybody, but, you know, respecting my faith and believing, you know, in what the Scripture says, that's the best way I can interpret it.
But, I mean, shouldn't the Scripture be dragged kicking and screaming into the modern age? I mean, we were talking before the break about the issue about eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Not everything in the Scriptures really is, in my view, conducive to modern life. I mean, like everything else, doesn't it have to move with the times? And isn't it down again to people like you to interpret it in a way that evolves? I mean, you're known as a very progressive preacher.
Sure. Well, we want to be progressive, but sometimes when I read it, I can't see how you would change that, just like you wouldn't, you know, change some other main things, you know, in the Scripture. I don't see how that, you know, if you don't have a basis of truth, and that's what I base mine off of, the Scripture. Everybody else does it, and I don't fault them if they don't. But this is just the way I choose to live my life and what I teach based out of the Scripture. So I don't think, you know, I think, you know, personally, 200 years from now, the Scripture's still going to say that.
Yes, but the law of the land may not, and it may not in your state. And the law of the land is changing fast. And you know, your argument about executions was, well, it's the law of the land in somewhere like Texas. What if Texas eventually, and at the moment it's an unlikely place I'd imagine to bring this in, but it may change with enough pressure. Texas brings in a law that same-sex marriage is permissible. How would you feel then if it's the law of the land?
Well, you know what? I'm going to respect the law, and I'm going to respect gay people like I do now. You know, have plenty of people that come to our church and friends, I would call, that are gay, so I'm going to respect that. I think where it puts a difficult situation is me being a Christian pastor, believing the Scripture. You know, it'd be against my faith to marry two gay people.
You could never do that.
No, it would be against what I believe the Scripture teaches. And so that's where I think the rub comes in of people like myself. It's not that I'm against anybody, or, you know, if people want to live together, that's up to them. But my faith, when we say marriage, I mean, I think about, Pierce, all through the Bible, there's, you know, hundreds of marriages, but none of them are shown as between, you know, the same sex. And again, I'm not against anything, but I just believe that's what the Bible teaches, and that's how we've chosen to live.
Don't you feel a bit uneasy that the last person I heard speaking like this was Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who's the president of Iran, who says there are no gay people in Iran and it's a terrible sin and curse. I mean, Victoria, what do you think of all this, the gay marriage debate? I mean, could you ever imagine attending a gay marriage between two people who come to your church, for example, if they invited you?
Well, I think if it was that easy, then we would have figured it out by now. But it's been overthrown. States go for it, then they overthrow it. And so it's very difficult for people.
But accepting an invitation is easy. So would you accept one or not?
Would I accept one?
Two gay people who attend your church invite you to their wedding.
Sure, I would go.
You would?
Well, I don't, you know, if I had time,
could you go?
I would.
If they were friends of mine, and I respect them, I would certainly go.
You would watch two people you think are sinners committing the ultimate sin?
Well, I'm looking at it, I don't think it's the ultimate sin, but I'm looking at it from another point of view of respect to that person. And, you know, it gets convoluted, but I'm looking at it as respect to that person.
Could you, in your position, actually actively encourage people to go through a same-sex marriage? Could you be seen to do it? Could you be photographed at such an event?
Well, I would
that not cause you problems?
Well, you know, it's such a hypothetical, and I'm talking about...
Well, not really, because you said lots of gay people go to your church, so it might happen.
Well, I haven't been to many weddings lately to begin with, but I'm talking about somebody that was, you know, dear to us. I'm not going to disrespect somebody that's dear to us and say, you know what, you're not good enough for us or something like that. That's the way I would see it. Now, I'm not going to just run off and go to attend, you know, certain marriages just to make a statement, because that's not who I am and that's not what I stand for. And again, I don't look down on those people.